This just in, and it's big. Hello, everyone. Harry here to talk about the trial date that Judge Tanya Chutkan has just set in the January 6th trial in D.C. Now, you may remember, this is the one where the prosecutors, Jack Smith, said, we can do this January 2nd. And Donald Trump's lawyers came back and said, we're thinking April 2026, an outlandish proposal, not a serious one, really a provocation to the judge. And it certainly seemed to be a risky maneuver, and based on today's hearing, it was. So Chutkan was very sort of measured, but tart. She basically gave it back of the hand. She said, there is no way we are going to trial in March 2026. She said, Donald Trump, he had whatever his obligations are, he's just got to work around them like any other criminal defendant. So recall at the last hearing, she had basically taken off the table the idea that because he's running for president, the schedule should give ground. He's made that argument with success in front of Judge Cannon, but Judge Chutkan said right away, I'm not thinking in those terms. And the papers that he filed didn't mention it. They just, this was the one where they said it's the equivalent of reading War and Peace 9 times every day, and gave very, very deceptive accounts of what was involved in going through discovery to try to bargain for this ridiculous date. Chutkan, gave that back of the hand. She called they had given a average of certain trials, how long they had taken, but those were a small sample from COVID where everything was was completely upended. Moreover, I hadn't realized this, and I think others hadn't as well. The summary median time they had given was from indictment to sentencing. So that includes the whole long chunk after conviction to sentencing. So that, she said, was misleading. And when a federal judge looks down on you and calls your submission misleading, that is the, equivalent of in a schoolyard debate would be a total haymaker knockout shot. That's really very harsh stuff. Okay, so she really gives it, she is very sort of firm. It might have been query whether they should have just come in with something on the, that at least sounded reasonable, November, October 2024, and then potentially she might have said something like June. Instead, they didn't get any compromise on the date, and even worse, it's clear that that Trump's lawyer has lost a fair bit of credibility with the judge, and that's a very, very ominous situation when you have a whole trial ahead. So she gave this sort of tongue wagging to them. The Department of Justice let her know that all their discovery was almost complete in what they'd given. And she then took a brief recess and came back to give her trial date of March 4th, 2024. I'll say, by the way, that I had predicted March or April, not hugely patting myself on the back, but just to say, I think what was in her mind was she could easily have said, I have a serious proposal and a joke. I'll just go with the serious one. She didn't do that. She doesn't want to begin to create a record that they could eventually try to say on appeal showed any kind of bias against her. Instead, she made a different record. She said, foremost, what I'm thinking of is the defendant's due process rights. That's my calculation. I don't want to make it so fast that it abridges the defendant's due process ability to prepare a defense. On the other hand, she also said that speedy trial rights are partly something for the public as well. So anyway, March 4th, Now, maybe, that gives some ground, but that I think is real. Her intention really would be that it's around then. Now, I believe, as I'm sitting here, that that's the day before Super Tuesday. And I don't think there's any way to complete it before then. It might be after Super Tuesday that Trump's nomination anyway is all but sewed up. So be it. But this is about as early as it could feasibly have been set. And as I say, we shouldn't be surprised if it gives ground a bit. But making it in March makes it pretty likely that it happens, say, by June, and that the trial is completed well before, and there's a jury verdict well before the November election. So everyone can go to the polls, knowing if one of the candidates has been judged beyond a reasonable doubt to have committed really serious crimes, and that is the way it should be. Okay, so a tough day in court for Trump's lawyers. The judge, who's a even-tempered person, was even-tempered on the bench, calls them misleading, says, I have a very, very different idea of the timing of this trial, but makes a record that she's really protecting the due process rights. Also, however, emphasizes speedy trial is a public right as well. Comes back with March 4th, about as early as I think most people would have predicted. All in all, a very important date for justice and accountability in this country, especially since Fulton County, it seems to me, Donald Trump will never stand trial before November, and that this really is the most serious of crimes that have been charged, and by the very government that Trump led. So it's a big day, a rough day for Trump, and it just shows he made a political calculation to say 2026, but this is where it costs him, back in court, and back in court is where he may pay the ultimate cost. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.